Hello, everybody. We are here again. I hope you're excited as we are. Now, today, Kat is. I do that and I never know which way around it's going to be when it's on your screen, but Kat is in charge today. And she is going to do Blood's Bejewelled Balls Up, which I think you'll agree is possibly the most Kat title we've ever had.
Beautiful.
Yes. Speaking of Kat, disclaimer.
Yes, I mean we're already halfway there with the phrase balls up, so let's rock it before we. I was going to say really inappropriate. I'll tell you once from the disclaimer what I was going to say because I can't do it until I. Right, here we go. Hi friends, it's History After Dark. We called it that for a number of reasons. Principal amongst them is this is a space where we, who on our other social media are all PG-13. This is the space where we can let our freak flags fly. We are going to use four-letter expletives. There is going to be filth, innuendo, innuendo, smut of all descriptions. So if you're in an open plan office, the judgmental boss, put your headphone in. If you are in a car, a kitchen, a hotel lobby with a small child who is a problem, we call this child Timmy. Catherine's got the merch. She's going to show you on screen if you're watching on screen. Timmy is the kind of child that hears one depraved thing one time, takes him to school with him. He repeats the depraved thing in front of his teacher, who in my head is Miss Honey. Miss Honey, pure as the driven. She does not watch History After Dark, obviously, because everybody who is here is a bit of a deviant. That's why you found us. And this, let's remember, the algorithm, you make it. You make it. So if you're here, it's because you're meant to be, you filthy buggers. Right. So she breaks the first cardinal rule of History After Dark. She Googles it. Look, if you know what it means, that's fine. It's not for you. Don't Google it. That's okay. But she does Google it, and she is now in a fetal position in the corner, rocking back and forth. She is non-verbal. You're called up to school. Why does Timmy know this depraved thing? And also, can you please give us your credit card? Because you're now on the hook for however many weeks of therapy it gets to get this woman standing up and talking again. No one needs that. Put a headphone in. All of that is to say, it's very clear, I feel, what this is about and what might be happening within the episodes. If at any point I should see you coming on with your little commenting fingers into our social medias and saying, oh, I do enjoy History After Dark, but you have to do so much swearing. It's very rude and I don't like it. First of all, fuck off. Second of all, we know what you're doing. You want me to pin that comment so that other people come from the comment section like a horde of angry, arsonistic Normans or Vikings or Iceni, because they're all arsonists. We know this. And say, I'm going to shame you and humiliate you because that's your kink, you dirty pervert. And look, I won't shame you for kinks. I just did a bit, but it's okay. These two will definitely shame you for your kinks. What the problem is, and why you're a dirty pervert, is that you're trying to get your kink without consent. Now then, my dear friend Tiffany, who is down in the Brighton basement with a car battery, nipple clamps, an arse gnome, and a filthy cling film covered kumquat, will do all manner of unspeakable things to you. She has got white, clean outfits for days. But she's got to buy those outfits and those kumquats and the cling film. So you pay your money and you take your choice. Thusly, this will never be a drinking game. We will never approve of it. You're all adults. Dear Christ, I hope you're all adults after I've just said that.
By now. You are now, if you weren't before.
So you can do what you want. If you want to get drunk following along with us, that's fine. But we don't approve that message. This will never be medical, nor will it be legal advice. Do not sue. This is History After Dark. And the thing that I was going to say before has just fallen out of my head. So I'll have to wait.
If you only listen to this on the podcast, right? Thank you so much for doing that. If you ever get a chance to come down and watch this, some of our facial expressions are just like you're missing out.
Oh, I know what I was going to say. Because he was saying rock out. I was about to say rock out with your cock out. I was about to go rock out with your cock out. I'm like, haven't done a disclaimer yet. Can't rock out with your cock out till I've disclaimed. And now cocks are all out. Right. On that note, talking about cocks, I'm going to talk about the crown jewels and the stealing of them. As by way of précis, let's first of all talk about what we mean by crown jewels, because
not crown jewels.
There is, I think, I've seen in the medium that that's a discussion for another day. What goes on in your codpiece, potentially also crown jewels or family jewels. But I see some confusion about, with the modern royals, what constitutes the crown jewels. The crown jewels that I am referring to are the coronation regalia. So that's various crowns, orbs, scepters. Today it's got, the rod, the ampulla, the spoon. There's robes, spurs, bracelets, swords, various jewellery, plate, etc., etc. Then there are also jewels belonging to the crown that are working jewels. So the plate of silver and gold, maces, trumpets, all of that kind of stuff. Then there is also, on top of that, the personal jewels of members of the royal family. So the king's jewels, the queen's jewels, the Princess of Wales's jewels, etc., they may have come through inheritance, and they may pass through members of the royal family, but that doesn't make them the crown jewels, even though they are potentially worn by the crown. It's confusing, but the crown jewels as a collection has expanded and contracted. We are not in any way working with the same crown jewels that we have worked with for centuries. Some bits survive, not a lot. After all, King John allegedly his crown jewels, perhaps it may just have been the first crown of St. Edward. He allegedly loses it in a place called the Wash. So there's very funny things about losing your crown jewels in the washing machine. But the Wash is a bit of an estuary in the east of England. And when the tide is out, it's traversable. Is that a word? Yeah. But when the tide comes in, it's not. And it can come in fairly quickly, and you're fairly fucked. 1216 was also the year that King John died of dysentery.
He did get the end he deserved, I think.
Did shit himself to death. In the next century, Edward I is doing what monarchs have done for centuries previously, we believe, and that is keeping his royal treasury at Westminster Abbey. And the royal treasury is where the crown jewels are kept. So this is potentially the first theft of the crown jewels. Keeping the jewels at Westminster actually makes way more sense than keeping it at the Tower of London. Why? Because coronation happens at Westminster. So you can keep the jewels where the crowning happens. Now, why are they no longer at Westminster? Well, for the jewels to be safe, you have to trust the people that are looking after the area, the monks. And as we all know, you can't trust the monk. They're cheeky. So the monks, potentially inspired or with a patsy of a regular layperson, robbed Edward's crown jewels, pawned them. Edward I, I think, as anybody who is aware of him knows, that he is meek and mild and does not have absolutely volcanic eruptions of temper. Of course, I'm lying. It's the last one. He is a furious George, Edward. But he lets his demonic fury fly, we're told. He, when he finds out that his crown jewels are gone, he bangs up the monks. The problem is, of course, they've got benefit of clergy, so he can't do what he wants to do to them, which is, kill them. So instead, he gets hold of the layperson that is thought to be responsible, who's a guy called Richard Pudlicote. And because he can't do what he wants to do to the monks, poor Dickie, he's having problems. He's having a bad day because he is supposedly skinned alive. And then his skin is supposed to have been stretched over the door behind which the crown jewels once stood. Now, what I will say is the oldest door in England, allegedly, which is thought to be constructed in around the 1050s, is now found at Westminster Abbey, which was consecrated in 1065. Now, on that door, there were traces of skin.
Oh, no.
Do you know this happened somewhere else as well? Which is interesting.
Yeah, which was tested. Yeah. Cowhide.
Right.
Cowhide, not Pudlicote skin. was not Pudlicott leather. It was cowskin, probably put there so they could paint. Catherine looks like she's about to have
I'm just thinking, please tell me that story's not
He
true.
looks unwell.
There is one that is true, but anyway, that's for another day.
It takes quite a lot to mortify me, as you know, but that's bad times all round.
It was probably wrapped with cowskin so they could like paint artwork on it, or maybe do not enter and steal stuff because we'll flay you alive. That could have been what happened. Unsurprisingly, Edward doesn't trust the Abbey's security, and it's believed that is when the decision is made to move the jewels to the Tower of London. Edward I, of course, refortifies the Tower of London. He is the one that puts in the outer curtain wall. He's also the one that sorts out his dad's moat problem, because his dad, when he puts in the moat around the tower, forgot the Thames was a tidal river, silly sod. So when the Thames went out, the moat went out. So Edward puts in sluice gates, which means that the moat could be permanently full. Right, so now we've got a safer tower, the crown jewels are there. However, on at least one, potentially two occasions, there were successful and attempts to pawn the crown jewels. Edward III pawns them for the wars in France, and then Charles I's wife attempts to pawn them because of the whole English Civil War situation. She is blocked by Parliament if she indeed did attempt to pawn them. It may be that they were saying she did because they want to make her look bad. Either way, Parliament is for some reason keen to keep the crown jewels until 1649, when they're like, no, fuck this. Let's melt the royal jewels down. Let's melt down all the regalia. Let's sell off the gold. Let's sell off the gems. That's all done on the orders of Oliver Cromwell. Because, of course, in their mind, we're done with kings now. And so we don't need crowns. The French keep theirs, not us. This 1649 is also, of course, the year that Charles I is tried, convicted of treason, and then he is then ultimately beheaded on a scaffold outside the banqueting house in Whitehall. The interregnum: no crown, no jewels, no Christmas. That's the tagline for the interregnum. No king, no crown, no Christmas. The interregnum, full stop. 1660, going into 1661, there is a decision made that we're going to invite Charles II, as he then becomes, back to his father's throne, because they've had far too little fun and they want the Merry Monarch back. So new regalia have to be created at the end of the interregnum. While today, if you've been to see the crown jewels, you will have gone into a building called the Waterloo Block, where the crown is behind, all of the jewels are behind bulletproof glass. It's in a building where there is an active duty military garrison. Like, it's legit, it's for real. That's not the first place they were stored in the tower. We're not sure of all the places they were stored in the tower, but for example, not long before they moved to the Waterloo Block, so in the 19th century going into the early 20th century, the jewels were stored in this like birdcage looking thing in the Wakefield Tower, which is now listed as the place where Henry VI, by tradition, is supposed to have died. They were in there until a suffragette called Leonora Cohen came in and tried to smash a bit of them through the grating. So a new situation had to be found. However, we're going back to 1671. So when this new regalia is 10 years old, right? And at that time, this new regalia is being kept in the Martin Tower, which I don't know how familiar it is with the tower, but if you are stood outside the modern day jewel house facing it, and you look to your right, where you would basically walk around to the toilets, you've got the baboon sculptures. The Martin Tower is the tall one behind that. In the Martin Tower, that is the home of a man called Talbot Edwards, or Talbot Edwards. He is the deputy keeper of the crown jewels. He is answering to the keeper of the crown jewels, who at this time is a guy called Gilbert Talbot. Confusing that his surname is the other guy's first name, but we are what we are. So there is some intimation or suggestion that Gilbert Talbot may not have paid Talbot Edwards properly. I also want to point out that by all accounts, although we don't know how old, Talbot Edwards is said to be an old geezer, like he's old. But what he would do
40.
for extra money, he's probably 40. In I don't know, older than that, I think.
42.
So the suggestion being that he's not paid properly might be the reason why he makes the following choice, which is that for a bit of extra cash, he will allow people to come into his house and view the regalia, which is presumably in some chest, cupboard,
Safely.
I don't know, under the bed. Who fucking knows? And allegedly, for an extra bit of money, he'll even let you try on the crown. So, word gets around that this is going on. And one fine day, Talbot Edwards is doing his bit of underhand, under the table job on the side, when a very kind and respectable churchman introduced himself as Parson Ailif, and they are out for a jolly. He's brought with him, Parson Ailif has brought with him his lady wife, and Talbot Edwards is just unspeakably charmed by these two really upstanding and respectable individuals. Indeed, he's so charmed that he ultimately will hand over a set of pistols to Parson Ailif. I think maybe some sort of sale goes on. He trusts him enough to give him weapons as well as to see the crown. They chat. At some point, according to the story, Parson Ailif's wife becomes unwell. And so Talbot Edwards, very concerned about his well-to-do guest, allows her to lay down on the bed, presumably in the room where the crown jewels are being kept. So no doubt she's left alone, presumably, because she's not well and she's a lady. So I'm sure she is rifling through everything she can possibly do, because, wouldn't you know it, Parson Ailif is not a parson. He is instead a man called Colonel Thomas Blood. He's known as a colonel and a captain, Thomas Blood. That may not be his real name. It's unclear if he was ever a colonel or a captain as well. So if you're going to ask me how old he was, what his date of birth was, I can't even tell you his real name. So I'm of no use in that regard. He's known as Colonel Thomas Blood or Captain Thomas Blood. So I'll call him Thomas Blood. What we do know is that he is recorded as having fought on both sides during the English Civil War.
Wow.
They just have two hats
somehow,
or something. They just have
just absolute turncoat either way. Or maybe a double agent from the start. Now I'm around Ted and just flip-flopping. He does earn himself some estates in Ireland, which he then loses because he tried to kidnap and have the Duke of Ormond executed. He tried to kill him. He also plotted to assassinate Charles II. So, also, and the lady he's brought with him is not his wife. She's a paid actress that he presumably picked up down in Covent Garden. So Colonel Blood and this actress have rocked up, but they so win over Edwards that they're having this chat, and presumably at some point, Edwards brings up the fact that he's got these children. His son's a soldier, but his daughter, she's still at home, and no doubt fearing that she might be left on the shelf as an old maid of. I mean, I've got no idea how old she was. Probably at this point, 25. And they're worried about her becoming a spinster, clearly. So, wouldn't you know, Parson Ailif, Thomas Blood, has a nephew very well to do.
Surprised.
How about we do a little meet cute? I bring my nephew, he meets your daughter Elizabeth. Good match, good match. So a date is set for Parson Aleph and his lady wife and his nephew to come back. So the number on the Aleph side, as we can see, is growing. On the day of the meeting, though, it's not just Blood, his wife, and his nephew. They bring other friends too, because they've said, "Oh, don't worry, Talbot Edwards. We've brought them because they want to see the crown jewels too, and you trust us, so they're our friends." So now you've got this old bloke and his daughter living in the Martin Tower. The son's away fighting somewhere, so it's just the two of them. And now this horde of people have come. They are outnumbered by a long shot. They convince Edwards to show off the jewels, and within a moment, he is bashed over the head really hard. He's unconscious, and they get the orb. Apparently, that goes down somebody's trousers. Colonel Blood smashes the crown flat so he can conceal it under his cloak. There is some attempt made to saw the scepter in half, like they are trying to make way for it. They then make a break for it. Now, that's going to mean coming from essentially the back right corner of the tower complex down through the whole tower out onto the wharf. They get onto the wharf. They are making a break for it. But by some miracle, this is also the day that Talbot Edwards' son, with Edwards, that's his name, arrives for a visit to his father.
Hooray!
Just at the right time.
Just at the right time. And while the gang is making their escape, the alarm is raised super quickly. Like, they're shouting treason, theft of the crown jewels. Somebody thinks Talbot Edwards been murdered. They're shouting murder. Like, it's just yelling. The group, shots were fired. No one's hit. Even though the group nearly escaped, they are all captured and the full loot is reclaimed, bar maybe a couple of jewels that might have fell out of the crown when it's smashed flat. Now, for those who don't know how this story plays out, I think that the logical thought process we're going to go through is this dude who's tried to assassinate King Charles in the past, who tried to have the Duke of Ormond killed, who's now tried to rob the crown jewels. The logical thought process is that the king is going to sign his death warrant with a quickness. However, Colonel Blood says, I want to meet with the king. I want a private audience. And for some reason, Charles II goes, that sounds like Bants. All right. Fabulous. The meeting is private. No one knows what passes between these two men in the meeting, although, as Philippa pointed out to me earlier, horrible histories did do their own imagined version of what happens in this meeting. And for the last part of this video, when I get to it, I really want to speak to you two ladies about what the fuck you think happened, because what the baffling fact of the matter is that at the end of this meeting, Colonel Blood is pardoned. Complete pardon. On top of that, the lands that he had taken from him in Ireland for trying to kill the Earl of Ormond, they're worth £500, around £500 a year in old money. They're returned to him. He's also made welcome at court. In fact, at some courts, he's given rooms so the king can go visit him. He gets rooms at court. We think that the king employs him for like spying business, and he lives until 1680. A mark of how nefarious this character is that for his fellow courtiers, because by that point, let's be clear, he's welcomed at court. He is a courtier. His fellow courtiers genuinely seem to believe that he has faked his own death, potentially to avoid paying the debts that he owed. And so there is a demand made that his body be exhumed
Oh no.
so that they could check that he'd actually cocked it. Apparently, they are happy that it is Colonel Blood. And the reason given, which is also so fucking weird, is they recognised him on account of his large thumb, maybe thumbs. So this guy has weird big fucking thumbs. I don't know.
Not a recognisable face. The face is anyone. It could be anyone.
I'm assuming that decomp had set in, so the thumbs were the clue. I don't know. I don't know. So my question is, what do we reckon? That's the failed threat for the crown jewels. However, I don't know if it really counts as a cock up because he might not have got the crown jewels, but Colonel Blood's done fairly well out of it. So maybe this is actually
he did very well
a cock up? Question mark. Sound off in the comments. But also, ladies, what do you reckon? What do you reckon?
He had to have had something on him, surely.
You reckon he had? He's like, if you don't blackmail,
or we already knew him somehow. The fact that Charles took the meeting could be curiosity, because Charles could just be like, "Oh, let's see who this guy is who's tried to kill me and tried or he already knew him somehow." Which, if he's already, like you said, he's already when he's when they're having the wars, he's like one side, then the other side, then the other side. So potentially a spy. So could he already be known to Charles for that reason?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe.
Do we know what
he was an illegitimate son of Charles, and that's.
Well, we don't know. Yeah, because we don't know how old he is. Well, he passed as somebody. Oh no, with a nephew. Yeah, not a child.
Yeah, I mean, the thing we do think that the person who is passing his nephew may well have been his illegitimate son. So he's old enough that I don't know how old he is, but I think he's of an age that he is either Charles's age or older.
Because Charles is 30, isn't he? 1616.
Brother. Or a changeling. Maybe he was really the king.
And he knew. And this is how they decided to link up again.
Because Charles II, who wasn't Charles II at the time, was very scared for his life because of the interregnum. So they swapped places because nobody in England would have seen Charles II for quite a long time. And so when Charles II came back, he wasn't really Charles II. So Charles II, who was actually Colonel Blood, was like, right, unless you come in and give me everything I want, I'm going to expose you for who you are. What are you going to do about that?
We should point out now that this is not actual history.
Well, the thing is, we don't know what was said. Maybe Charles is living up to his Merry Monarch thing, that he's like, oh, this is fun. He's done a little jig for me. He's made me laugh. I'll let him off. Maybe Colonel Blood gives Charles some intelligence. There's this claim that he tried to assassinate him. Maybe he had backers that he essentially peached on his backers, and therefore Charles said, right, I'll keep you safe, and clearly you're a great double agent.
So we've had there's modern examples, isn't there, of like cyber criminals or forgery artists or whatever, and they get caught, they do their time, and then they're actually employed by banks or people like that, because they have clearly the kind of mind that they would quite like on their side to work out what he's going to do. Could it be that he's brought him into the fold?
Hacker.
Yeah, so sort of bring him into the fold to have that kind of thought.
I mean, the thing is, maybe he was a double agent from the Civil War. Maybe he was always a royalist, and he went over to the Roundhead side to act as double agent. Maybe that's why he switched sides. That actually he was. But in that case, why is he potentially trying to assassinate Charles II, and why is he trying to steal the crown jewels?
Yeah, the crown jewels bit is like a bit like. Do we know what happened to his
accomplices? Decoy. That's a decoy.
It could be. I'm not sure what happens to his accomplices, but to my knowledge, there's not a record of them being executed.
So they don't really have.
Colonel Blood got off and the other one got executed.
Yeah, because also, you know, he said they ran down and they got as far as like they actually just made it just outside town, and people were shouting, "Murder! They're trying to steal the crown jewels." How did they know they were trying to steal the crown jewels?
They're down their pants.
Yeah, but they're down their pants.
I think the logic is that Elizabeth Talbot spots something. She goes into the house and sees the crown jewels gone and her father
She's raised the
bleeding
alarm.
out from a head wound on the floor. He actually survives. They don't think he's going to because he's been hit so hard. So she sees the fact that the crown jewels are gone. That's the story, that she sees it and she starts shouting, "The crown jewels have been stolen, murder, murder." And then the tower like erupts and the alarm sounds.
How
Is the story.
also do you if you think about something like the crown, how do you in just a few seconds stamp on it flat? I'm not having that.
Well, I mean, I suppose it depends on the quality of the gold and how thin it's been. Yeah, I mean,
I'm not convinced by that bit.
I think right now that if you got, I'm not saying anyone should do it, but I reckon that if you got St Edward's crown right now and jumped on it, it would go flat pretty quick.
Don't try it.
Actually,
Don't try this at home.
Don't try it at home. I do have a suggestion because I have to always control myself because I'm naturally drawn to conspiracy theories. So I'm going to flag that. Right. There's a part of my brain that goes, "Oh, could it be?" And I think I'm Sherlock Holmes, but maybe I'm not. I think that the following happened. Charles II is invited back to the throne, but Parliament's going to keep him on a really short leash. They aren't going to give him the money he wants, but they are going to mint him a whole new set of crown jewels, and they're going to give him a very small allowance. So I wonder if Colonel Blood, who he may have known as a double agent during the Civil War, is brought in to heist the crown jewels as an insurance job so that Charles could get the money. And either that fails or the thing that was stolen, it was actually about replacing the crown jewels with a less valuable forgery that then got smashed and had to be replaced. So Charles has the real crown jewels that he can then pawn off. And I wonder if that's why Colonel Blood gets rewarded, is because Charles had paid him in the first place.
They'd struck a deal.
Well, can I throw something else into that then?
Yeah.
Because at Oliver Cromwell's funeral, he actually has a state funeral. The only reason we didn't have a King Oliver is because he decided not to take the title. Parliament really, really pressured him to take the term king. Anyway, when he's buried, his effigy has an orb, a scepter, and a crown next to it. Now, where are they by this point? Are they the ones that are on display? And Charles thinks, let's get rid of them. I want my own because, I'm not having Cromwell's. I'm completely just throwing that out there because I have no evidence. But there are something is next to Cromwell at his funeral.
I mean, it's not the originals because they've all been.
No, they've been melted.
We're told that they are melted down and sold off. Yeah. So something is made for a republic. Republic.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Inverted commas. Yeah.
I suppose my other question is, do we think of this as being a cock-up?
Oh, I have another one.
Because he doesn't get the
Colonel
crown jewels.
Actually a woman and was Charles II's mistress.
Which one? Because he's got 1,800.
Well, just one of them. Just one of them.
Well, he doesn't hide the rest of the women.
Yeah, but it's just a bit getting a lot of stick for all the other ones. Have a secret one.
Okay, right. Actually, what I think is going on is actually Colonel Blood is 3 of Charles's mistresses in a trench coat. It's stacked.
with with the massive, they're just
massive
3 thumbs
thumb.
taped together on each side.
That's
That's why it's
why
massive.
that's
Count
why
the
it's so
big
massive.
thumbs.
3 ladies' thumbs. They're not long. They're fat. It's 3 thumbs side by side. That's what it is.
This is definitely the
Case
most realistic theory we've ever come up with.
Amazing.
I
Super
agree.
sleuths here. There might be a side hustle in this for us.
MI6. We've missed our calling.
Yeah. Private detectives forward.
Have I been erroneous to put this as one of our cock-ups, one of history's cock-ups? Or is it fair enough?
Without knowing, I mean, it wasn't successful in terms of they didn't manage to get hold of them, but I suppose without knowing what the real motivation was, it could have been that it all went perfectly to plan. Who knows? It's very interesting. Do you know, I love the idea as well when you said right at the beginning about the crown jewels, that there's some working crown jewels and some like, so you can imagine, I have to
Just on the
work for a
dole.
living, and then other ones are just sparkling.
Just sparkling. Cat has frozen. Is Cat frozen for you?
Oh, she has frozen, yeah.
Yes, I
Cat's
know.
come back. But yeah, I love that idea about some of the
them
crown
are
jewels.
Slackers.
Then she's back.
There you are. You froze.
Yeah, it all froze. I got the swirly woo-woos of woo.
Oh God, woo of doom,
Woo.
swirly doom.
Yes,
Wheel.
of death. The swirly things of death. So I
Did you
don't
hear
know
Maybe
whether it's a cock up or not. It's a good tale, and obviously it produces a lot of discussion because there are so many sort of things that don't make sense. And you could argue that whatever it was, the fact that it was even allowed to get to that stage in the first place was a series of things that were being seriously overlooked by a number of people.
Yeah, I mean, I do also think that part of the reason why it's assessed commonly in the way that it is, that, you know, oh, Colonel Blood must have been really charming, or oh, Charles did it because he just fancied it, like he was just, that is because of the carefully curated reputation that Charles II developed for himself. He shapes himself into this merry monarch, you know. It's a return. The theatre comes back. All of the ladies are basically wearing nightgowns that can be undone with a single string. Like it's a libertine agenda, and that is absolutely, he builds that brick by brick. Like he builds that reputation for himself, I believe, as a concerted choice. Because if people think that you are secretly a bit of an idiot who only really cares about shagging, they might not behead you like they did your dad.
And they might not notice when you're doing stuff that
they might not notice when you're, for example, trying to bring in Catholic toleration.
Yes.
They might not notice that.
He wants to appear diametrically opposed to Cromwell, doesn't he?
He does. But also, though, he doesn't want to have to fight Parliament. He wants more money. He's not happy with the amount they've given him. He doesn't feel it's kingly. So rather than keep arguing with Parliament and demanding more and more and more money, just steal it. Just steal it. To me, that actually makes loads of sense, because I don't believe the stupid shagger merry monarch thing. I think this is somebody who is making a calculated choice to survive. And while doing it, let's be fair, being a merry shagger is a nice way to live your life if you can avoid the syphilis.
If you think about what he'd witnessed and what he'd been through, I know he may have had some good supporters and some good counsel abroad and people who were prepared to support him because they didn't agree with what had gone on. But you've got to be a little bit shrewd. You've got to be a little bit thinking outside the box. You've got to try and be a few steps ahead. So if you've got someone who is as prolific as Colonel Blood at being a two-faced bastard who gets away with stuff, you're risking the fact that you're allying with a two-faced bastard that gets away with stuff. But yeah,
I mean, even the decision to meet him alone, even the decision to send the guards out so they can talk alone, Charles feels safe. This man who hit up a fucking oak tree and fled to the continent and was afraid of assassins, he must have known him. To my mind, because Charles isn't stupid. I don't believe he's stupid.
No.
So for him to willingly meet And I don't think he's that much of a risk taker. Well, certainly not with his own safety in his own life. I don't believe. I think he is very concerted in the things he does. I think he's stage managing his reputation from the get-go. And yeah, he makes missteps, sure. But when we consider what his brother does, where he's like, oh no, it's gonna be my way. I'm gonna rule like a king.
Far
They're
less
like,
careful.
no, sir, I don't think so.
Yeah.
The notion that he would be flagrant enough with respect to his safety to sit alone in a room with a man who has stolen his jewels, tried to kill a nobleman, and also allegedly tried to assassinate him, that makes no sense.
No,
unless he knows him.
So we know we pretty much sure he knows him. We just have no idea how or what benefit that relationship gives to Charles.
I mean, he could have known him for donkey's years, for all we know.
Well, we don't know who he is, do we? So we don't know if this is a guy who he fled with or met
and so
in exile.
The real question is Colonel Blood apologizing to a friend who's going to let him off for being a bit of a silly goose, or is Colonel Blood saying, well, coming to a friend and saying, I did what you told me. How are we going to square the circle here?
It'd be fascinating to know what other people thought of the outcome of that meeting. That this guy, how much did they know about the crown jewels supposed theft, and then what they made of this guy turning up to court and having these lands reinstated and all of that?
Well, from the kind of the sort of misty view of it, they are utterly befuddled, and that's one of the reasons why they just don't trust Colonel Blood. For whenever they see him, they're like, "Well, he's spying on us." Obviously, we don't want him around. Of course, he was. That's what he was there for. They don't want him around. So that's the thing. He is just whenever he's there, he's like he's clearly lurking on Charles's business. So Charles doesn't just reward him; he trusts him loads. It seems.
Maybe he was his illegitimate half brother. As they were about.
What is it with you and like being a relation?
Hey, look, it would make a bit more sense because there's a potential for blackmail. There's kinsmanship through difficult times.
Nah, because Charles I was not a shagger.
Yeah, that we know.
Don't think he was though, was he?
But we were, nobody was with him all the time.
I don't even know where to go with that one.
Wow.
It is interesting. I'm really looking forward to seeing in the comments what people think.
Yeah. Do you agree with that?
Also to think it's a cock up or not. Is this a cock up or is this the greatest
cock down?
Cock in. A cock in. Cock. Is this a cock up or a cock in?
In out, shake it all about.
Yeah, that's how you do it. And the baby was born. There we go.
Can I make a geeky observation about the moat in a kind of sticking up for Henry II kind of sense?
Okay.
You can try. I might disagree with you, but you can try.
I don't think that's optimistic.
Let's be. The sluice gates were a great idea because the sluice gates gives you the opportunity to control the water in the moat. But a tidal system was great for cleaning out the moat. But the sluice gates were definitely a good addition.
Well, see, actually, here's the thing. I would argue that the sluice gates potentially work better for cleaning out the moat because if you keep the sluice gates up. If you keep the sluice gates up, then when the tide goes down, you just release it and you take what was basically an open sewer.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, if it's going out slowly, you're just going to have turds and detritus just sprinkling. I mean, either way, the moat ends up being super gross. There's a reason why the moat is dry now, and that is because by the 19th century and end of the 19th century, the whole of the Thames is vile. It's, you know, Parliament, it starts putting that fluid on the blinds because it stinks so bad. It's deemed to be hazardous to health. The moat smells so bad that it's deemed to be a hazard to health. So that's why it's drained. And it's why it's never filled again, because the Thames and the moat were so disgusting.
I wonder why they didn't just like put piles, you know, they used to put anywhere else. It was, say they built a previous to the Normans, but built a fort. Well, no, the Normans did this as well, actually. On the top of something, a hill or whatever.
Yeah.
Then they would have dry moats. Obviously, there's no water up there, and then they would put like pointy stakes in the ground to stop.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Attackers. I wonder why I'm just wondering why they. Wondering out loud. Maybe it's because they already had the Thames coming in and out of it, but why that wasn't an option.
Well, I think
the water alone was enough to kill you.
So in the pre-moat tower, there are sort of the pointy sticks at the inlet of the water to stop people coming in.
Because you can get boats around
well, that's what we think. That's in the artist's impressions of it as well. I mean, of course, the thing is that it's being built within the existing fortification of London Wall. So in some ways, it's like a really, arguably, bear with me here, it's like a really expansive Motte and Bailey, where you've got the tower, the White Tower, and then you've got the City of London. That's stretching things. I'm going to say that's stretching things.
Well, they do choose. They do choose to
other things in this discussion that I've put in, so don't worry.
But they do choose to site it right on the one wall, don't they? So
that
would make sense.
Well, because the thing is that when the Normans rock up, he puts one at the east that becomes the tower, and then he puts another wooden fortification in the west, so either side. Because of course you've got London Bridge that's lockable. And then either side he puts towers, which would potentially cover the view of the City of London. And then when the gates are going in, they're going to have guards in the gatehouses. The tower, then the wooden structure comes down, and it becomes obviously the stone structure we see. There is a fortification in the east. But it doesn't stand now. But yeah, I suppose that tower makes loads of sense because you can then protect further down. You protect the city, but you also protect Westminster. The further out you are, the better it is.
I had read somewhere that where the tower is sited, the reason the Romans had sited something there is because that was the last sort of navigable part of the river. So that's where the ships would stop and the trade, whatever they were trading, goods would be unloaded. So it was a great place for collecting levies, taxes, etc. on imports.
Yeah. Yeah. But I'm sure at one point, the people in charge of the tower were also in charge of St. Catherine's Dock.
Oh yeah, of course. Oh, of course, you got the dock next door. Yeah.
Yeah.
There you go. I mean,
I can't prove that, but it just makes sense to me that they're taking duties from that.
Yeah, that makes sense.
We decided now, so that's
That's it. Disclaimer: none of this could be true, but
but it might be.
Yeah. The whole Colonel Blood story is we don't know what happened. Let's make things up, which is kind of why I love it.
That's a good deal of history, though, isn't it?
Yeah, more than people admit. Yeah, I think so.
That's why it's so entertaining.
Yeah.
And that's why you need to bring your friends down to watch Had, because they think they don't like history, but they don't. If they like a good mystery, bring them down to this one first. So that's a good start, and tell them it's always like this. And then they'll go, oh, then them three women, they're great. We're going to watch that all the time. And then you'd have done them a favour because you're their friends.
Yeah. Here's the deal. I've said it before and I'll say it again. History is a great place if you're nosy. Like if you like gossip, if your friends watch reality TV, if your friends read gossip mags, if your friends are on TMZ, they will like history because they are messy and they are nosy, and so are we.
Yeah. We are like Hello Magazine.
But with but for the Plantagenet.
Yes.
Who behave worse than anybody in Towie put together.
Yes.
Facts.
There you go.
Married at First Sight has got nothing on the Georgians.
No.
See,
Right.
so bring your friends. Philippa.
Married on -1 sites as well. I mean, like, they didn't even do it. They didn't even have to see each other.
Yeah. Merit, possibly potential talking about marriage to people who haven't even been born yet. If we ever have a daughter, let's try and marry her to some French bloke. That's a great idea.
Yeah.
Right. Philippa, what's happening next week?
Next week, Catherine, you are taking the reins for the Howard Horror Show. The roller coaster of ups and fuck ups of the Howard family.
And there were many. They were an interesting bunch,
Dukes.
weren't they?
The Dukes.
Yes, they were an interesting bunch of absolute wankers. So you can
Brilliant.
So
So we're looking forward to
the
that.
early ones weren't absolute wankers, to be fair. But they tend to be
They
the
were
ones you
wankers in
haven't
training.
heard of quite as much.
They were
Yeah.
warming up. They were the warm-up acts.
Warm-up acts, yeah. So there we go.
Good. Looking
Kat,
forward
what
to
have
it.
you got to
Fabulous.
tell?
If you have liked what you've seen, please, you can support us over at Buy Me a Coffee. It is www.buymeacoffee.com/had podcast. Then you can go and buy some Winnebagos. You can also go there and join our close friends. That's on the Instagram. That is essentially where Catherine goes, finds depraved history memes and things about beavers, sometimes her beaver, and she puts them up on the close friends view. So if you want to know what our
I'm not well paid enough
if
for
you want to
that.
know what our group chat is like, it's just Catherine's beaver
She does
and
sponsor
vulgar
a beaver.
history memes. That's the place to be. It's also, you can also please do sign up for our Substack. Stuff is happening on the Substack. historyafterdarkhub.substack.com. There is also a paid area where there's going to be some bespoke bits and pieces, pictures, etc., that won't be anywhere else. So that's another place to go. What's that?
I might put up a picture of my beaver.
Look, we're not doing OnlyFans yet, but give us some time. We've also got merch. We've got History After Dark merch in various forms. We've got Timmy is a Problem merch. We've got No Feet for Free on the Internet merch. War Boner merch. Coming soon will be Tudor, Iceni, Viking problem-solving kits, namely about arson. There are more things to enjoy. And if there's other merch that you want us to make, please do feel free to send us a little DM or indeed an email. What's the email address? historyafterdark2021@gmail.com. You can always send us emails for merch requests. Please do subscribe to this channel. Make sure you're still subscribed if you think you are. YouTube does unsubscribe you. Please like the video. Please also comment on this video. Emojis would be good. I'm not quite sure what the emoji for this one could be.
Crown.
Maybe loads of thumbs up on account of,
or
a crown,
or
or Colonel Blood's massive thumbs. Maybe that could be the thing. You choose. We look forward to seeing what you pick. Also, when you are checking, there's a bell icon. Hit the bell icon. Select all, and the drop down will appear. YouTube should alert you to when we're next uploading. They don't always, so make sure you're following us on other social medias as well. In the comments, in the description box, you will also see links to our individual link trees with all the other places you can find each of us separately on the internet. I think
Okay. If additionally to obviously following us here and on the podcast, you can also follow us on Instagram, which is where of course you need to be if you want to be one of our close friends. And that is history.after.dark. So please do go down there because there will be announcements. So if YouTube doesn't tell you when we're coming, well, first of all, make sure, as Kat said, you are subscribed, because is it one of those things where most channels find that at least 3/4 of the people that watch them regularly don't subscribe? And I think sometimes when people hear the word subscribe, they think payment. And that's not
it's just
paid from YouTube. So you can subscribe to us for free. So you should, and tell all your friends to come down, and then they can as well. But yes, you'll get announcements about what's coming up and things like that on Instagram and other bits and pieces as well. So please do come and join us there too. It's the right thing to do.
Nice.
You know you want
excellent.
to. I see it in your eyes.
So there we go. Without further ado, then I'm going to count us out. So friends, be good. If you can't be good, be careful. And if you can't be careful, for God's sake, don't get caught, because the king is not going to let you off like he did Colonel Blood. We're leaving in 3, 2, 1. Bye.